Hey everyone, I don't know how far we'll get with Bible study today. I'm just going to go for a short time. I want to talk about the book of Judges, and hopefully you'll be able to come on and do it with me. I can't seem to get, there it is. Can't seem to get it on, there we are. And hopefully you'll all come in and let's talk about Judges for a minute. It is not a very long book, but it's a book that's very significant. It has amazing stories in it from Gideon, which I've been preaching a lot about this year, to Deborah and Gideon, and it has the story of Samson. So many Bible stories in these 21 chapters. And I can't say that I'll be here every day. I'll just come when I can. And hopefully we can study the Word together. Thanks so much, Sherry and Dana and Janice and Rhonda and Charlie. Thank you so much for joining us. And there are others. I see my number is bigger than the names that I'm seeing. So I love seeing all of you with me. The book of Judges, I'm probably just going to do the introduction because I just checked on Harry and he's not doing as well as he would like, and so I've got 20 minutes that I think I'll be okay, and then so let's just do the introduction and I'll try to get through chapter 1. But Judges is the 7th book in the Bible. So the 7th book of the Bible is the book of Judges. It's described the various men and women who distinguished themselves in Israel during the time period between the book of Joshua and the establishment of the kingdoms in 1 Samuel. For 400 years, Israel had no king and no prophet to guide them. Instead, 12 consecutive judges led them. 6 are what they call major judges, and 6 are what they call minor judges. The judges are Gideon, whom we know that story, Jephthah, Deborah, the only woman in the lineup, Ehud, Samson. I don't know about you, but for whatever reason, I didn't remember that Samson was a judge of Israel. And then Othniel. Those are the major judges. The minor judges are Shamgar, Elon, Jair, Tola, Abdon, and Ibzan. So there are 12 judges. 12 means divine government, God's divine government number. The world of the judges had many similarities to the modern times we're listening to now, but what they didn't do was they did not judge in a court system like we think of judges. The 12 divinely appointed judges were actually champions who brought the people out of the wilderness mentality and into divine order and breakthrough when no one else could. Now, here's what I want you to hear. Who were the judges? They were unique men and women who carried God's presence, His Spirit, and were commissioned to deliver the people of Israel from the oppression of the enemies. Now, the role of these deliverers cannot be understated, for without their impact and deliverance, Israel's enemies may have entirely consumed them. Some of the deliverers are well-known biblical champions, and others are somewhat obscure. Now, the judges were not law court judges like we consider a judge. Instead, they were Israel's champion deliverers. God chose them to deliver Israel from enemy oppression, lead the people of God into a revival, and restore their national identity. Sounds exactly what we need today. We need some champion deliverers. We need some restoration, and we need to remember who we are, and we need revival in America. And so I thank you, Lord, that as we read through this book, we will also see the things and the people and the opposition, yes, but the opportunity for us to step in and do what God has called us to do. Idolatry and apostasy on trial is one of the major themes. Disobedience and deliverance is another major theme. Spirit-empowered leadership is another theme. And the revelation of Christ as the champion deliverer is the main theme. Now, in Judges chapter 1, I'm reminding you, if you don't have this Passion Translation, please order it from our ministry and we'll get it right to you. Judah leads. And after Joshua died, the 12 tribal leaders consulted Yahweh for a prophetic sign and asked, "Which tribe do you choose to be the first to lead the attack against the Canaanites?" Yahweh answered them, "Let Judah take the lead." Remember Judah, the Lion of Judah, Jesus, the Lion of Judah. But Judah, the insignia or the flag sign was a lion. They were the first tribe encamped around the tent of meeting where the what is it that the Raiders of the Lost Ark went after the I can't think all of a sudden what they went after. They protected it, sat in the Holy of Holies, and so that Judah was the first tribe encamped out the east gate. And that's why Jesus will come through the eastern gate, because the tribe of Judah represents Jesus, the Ark of the Covenant. There we go. So you were probably writing that as fast as you could. So Yahweh answered them, "Let Judah take the lead. I've delivered the land into their hands." Judah then enlisted support from their brother tribe, Simeon. Simeon was the first tribe out the south gate, saying, "Follow us into our territory." You say, how do you know this? Look at Numbers chapter 2 in a Spirit-Filled Life Bible. It'll actually draw you a picture. "Follow us into our territory and fight with us against the Canaanites. Then we will do the same for you." So the Simeonites agreed and joined Judah. When Judah advanced, Yahweh gave them victory over the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Remember, those two tribes had giants infiltrated in them, but they were in the promised land and they had to go. They were in their promised land and they had to go. What demonic force is living in your promised land that's got to go? What giant has set up housekeeping in your promised land and has got to go? And they defeated 10,000 men at Bezek. They encountered King Adonai-Bezek fleeing with his army on the battlefield. They pursued him, captured him, and defeated the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Then they cut off Adonai-Bezek's thumbs and big toes. You know what happens when you lose your thumbs and your big toes? You have no more balance. You cannot stand. Adonai-Bezek confessed, "I once had 70 kings picking up scraps under my table with their thumbs and big toes cut off. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. Be sure your sins will find you out. What you've done to others, God will make sure is done to you." So that's why we want to love people and not judge them. They took him captive to Jerusalem, where he died. Judah's victories. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem and captured it. They killed the inhabitants of the city and they set it on fire. Afterward, the men of Judah continued their advance and attacked the Canaanites living in the hill country, the southern desert region, and the western lowlands. Under Caleb's leadership, they fought against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly known as Kiriath Arba, and killed the 3 Canaanite families descended from Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. And you can read about those. Let me just look here and see if I can tell you. Our son Harry would be able to tell you right off the top of his head, but I'm having to look at the verse. Verse 10 would tell us these 3 descendants came from the giant Anak. Numbers 13, 12, 22, and 33. And their names represent the 3 giants we must topple to advance into our inheritance. Sheshai is taken from a word that means whitewashed. Hello. He points to the hypocrisy of the Pharisees that were like tombs painted over with white paint. And then Matthew 23:27, consumed with how they appeared. They were consumed with how they appeared to others. That's the first giant that's got to go. You've got to stop caring what people think, and you've got to care only what God thinks. Ahiman means brother of a gift, or like a gift. He represents pride over giftedness. Hello, worshipers. Hello, musicians. Hello, great singers. Hello, great players. We cannot have pride over the gifts that God has given us. It is going to create a Luciferian spirit in you, and you will fall. So get rid of that pride, lay your face to the ground, and ask the Lord to use you. We all have spiritual gifts, but they are gifts of grace, not trophies. We don't deserve them. God gives them to us to use to give back to Him. And then Talmai comes from a word that means scholar. True scholarship will always acknowledge how little humans know and how great God truly is. According to the parallel passage in Joshua, it was the descendants of these three sons of Anak that were conquered in Joshua chapter 15. These three sons of Anak. We have to watch pride. We have to watch being caught up in all of our gifts and what we think we can do instead of understanding it's a gift. We have to watch being hypocritical, hypocrisy, acting like we're all that in a bag of chips. And then we have to stop caring what people think, and we have to understand that our knowledge means nothing. Tree of knowledge means nothing. It comes from the tree of life. The wisdom of God is all we are interested in. So we have to kill those three giants in our own life before we can go after those giants in our promised land. So Caleb announced, from there they attacked the city of Debir, formerly known as Kiriath Sefer. Caleb announced, remember Caleb, who is now very old and still super strong and a great warrior. I will give my daughter Aksa in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Sefer. Caleb's nephew, Othniel, the Kenizzite, captured Kiriath Sefer, and Caleb gave him his daughter Aksa in marriage. One day, Othniel nagged her to ask her father for a field as a wedding gift. So she went to her father. When she got down from her donkey, Caleb said to her, "What can I do for you?" "Please give me a blessing," she replied. "I know you've already given me some arid desert land, but please give me a field with springs of water." So Caleb blessed her with a field that had both upper and lower springs. Judah advances. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, joined the people of Judah and went with them from Jericho, the city of date palms, to the Judean wilderness. The Kenites had settled there among the Amalekites, another demonic tribe that should not be in your promised land, at Arad, and they had settled among them and got used to living with them instead of displacing them. Judah and their brother tribe, Simeon, advanced to the city of Zephath and wiped out the Canaanites living there. And that's what we're supposed to do. Wipe out the heathen, wipe out the demonic forces that are trying to steal, kill, and destroy. And don't get used to living among sin. That's why they now call the city Hormah. The men of Judah captured Gaza, Ashkelon, Ekron, and the territory surrounding each of these cities. We would call that Goliath's town, and Gaza and Ashkelon and Ekron. All of these were Philistine towns that you'll read about in Samuel and also in Chronicles. Remember when the Philistines stole the Ark of the Covenant? It was in these cities that you read about. Israel falls to conquer the land. No, Israel fails to conquer the land. Yahweh's presence and power were with the men of Judah, and they were able to conquer the hill country. But because the people of the lowlands had war chariots, they failed to drive them out. Because Caleb conquered the three giants, the sons of Anak, he was given the city of Hebron. Look at that. The very oldest man in the place conquered the three sons of Anak. The tribes of Benjamin, however, failed to conquer the Jebusites living in Jerusalem. So to this day, the Jebusites live among the Benjamites in Jerusalem. You see, your loved ones, your next generation and next generation, your descendants may have to live with what you should have conquered, what you should have gotten over, what you should have displaced out of your promised land, what you should have been strong enough to displace out of your life. If you don't do it, then your children have to deal with it, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. But if you would just take your position and trust God and believe that God is able to do anything inside of you, your children and your grandchildren wouldn't even know what the word is when it came to them, because it would be so defeated. Yahweh's presence and power were with Joseph's descendants, so they advanced toward Bethel and sent men ahead to spy out the city that was formerly known as Luz. The spies confronted a man coming out of Bethel, and they said to him, "Show us the way to enter the city, and we will treat you well." So he showed the spies a secret entrance into the city, and they killed everyone living in Bethel with the sword except that family and his family. Except that man and his family. Later, the man and his family moved to the land of the Hittites and built a town. The new town has kept the name Luz to this day. The Canaanites were determined to stay in their land, so the men of Manasseh did not conquer the cities of Bethshean, Taknah, Dor, Ibleam, Megiddo. Yep, if you've been to Israel, you've been to Megiddo, and their surrounding villages. And whenever Israel gained the upper hand, they subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but they did not completely drive them out. You got to drive out those God gives you authority over. The tribe of Ephraim failed to drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, so the Canaanites continued to live there among them to this day. The tribe of Zebulun failed to drive out the Canaanites living in Kitron or Naholah, so the Canaanites continue to live there among them. You see what happens when you don't do what God tells you to do? Generations to follow you have to deal with your failed mission. You are a soldier under orders to commander-in-chief. It is not about your ability. It is about your belief system in his ability. Believe and make them leave. The tribe of Asher failed to drive out the Canaanites living in Akko, Sidon, Alab, Akzib, Helbah, Aphlik, and Rehob. So the people of Asher live among the Canaanites, residing in the land because they did not conquer them. Likewise, the tribe of Naphtali failed to drive out the Canaanites living in Beth Shemesh or Beth Anath. So they live among the Canaanites residing in the land. However, they forced the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath to serve them. So they got something out of them. They made them serve them and labor for them. But that is not God's best. God's best is that you make the heathen leave. And when I say the heathen, I'm talking about the demonic forces that have tried to live in your house, live on your land, squatters, sickness, disease, poverty, anything that's tried to live in your promised land. You got to displace them and make them go. The tribe of Dan was least successful. The Amorites forced them back into the hills, and they could no longer live in the valley. The Amorites persisted in living in Mount Heres, in Aijalon, and in Shaalbim. But when the descendants of Joseph grew stronger, they overpowered the Amorites and ruled over them. The boundary of the Amorites ran from Scorpion Pass to Selah and continued northward from there. That's chapter 1. Now, the whole theme of that chapter is very simple. If you do not drive them out, they're going to still live among you. You're still going to have to deal with their ways. They serve other gods. They're going to infiltrate the culture, the society, the community. We got to make them leave. We got to go after the demonic forces, and we've got to be the righteous people of God who do not just put up with. You say, what are you talking about? Read Revelations chapter 2 and chapter 3. Read the condition of the churches. And when God says, I have something against you, you tolerate Jezebel. They tolerated these heathenistic nations that should not have been there. They should have been conquered, and they should have had to leave. But they tolerated them. So generations to follow had to deal with what they would not do. It is time, beloved, that you do your part, learn how to fight, get prepared, get taught how to war, and get to war and get rid of these demonic forces. Get rid of these things in you. Jealousy, anger, frustration, rage, envy, strife, chaos, the things that you're so used to living with. They got to go. They got to go. Sickness, disease, poverty, got to go. We've got to stop living with these demonic, fleshly, carnal things, and we've got to become the people who God has chosen to live in the promised land of all the promises of God. I hope this speaks to you today. Please read, order your book if you don't have it. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. Make sure you hit the share button. Let's get back into Bible study, and please don't stop praying. Order pray bracelet to remind yourself every time you stretch your hand out to pray, and help our ministry when you can. We appreciate your partnership. We appreciate your donations. We appreciate all that you can do for us. I pray that the Lord be with you, that He strengthen you, that He give you the knowledge, the understanding, and the wisdom to know it is not about you and your ability. It is about Him and His ability, and all you have to do is breathe and believe that He is able to do this through you, and stop putting up with the demonic force and the heathenistic opportunities that have been living in your land, and make them leave in Jesus' name. That is Judges chapter 1. There might have been 400 years with no king and no prophet, so God raised up 12 judges, 6 minor and 6 major judges, 3 of which we know Bible stories of. We know Samson, we know Deborah, and we know Gideon. So let's get to know them all in the next, all of these 21 chapters. We have 20 to go. Bless you, bless you. Thank you so much.